Hey everyone, happy Friday. Friday, May 2nd. Where has the time gone? I don't know why the light's so bad on the YouTube. Where is the time going? So I want to talk about a couple things that is happening. For those on Instagram, I posted in my stories just a little bit earlier all the things that I'm working on. On Facebook after this, I will post. I'll post as a comment to this, just like my whiteboard of all the things that I'm working on. And that is like not everything, but I just wanted to give a snapshot because we get asked often, what are we working on as a ward? There's a lot of things that are happening sort of behind the scenes. And again, this is actually just my list. My team has a whole other set of lists. So Holly in the office is the one who's responding to resident concerns, helping redirect where needed, helping answering questions there. So Holly does the majority of the emails, often sends some of those to me for comment. But even things like, when we get comments on cell phone towers, Holly is the one responding, talking about the process of like the approvals of cell phone towers. And I bring that up because there's one happening in Lakeview. I have a question about parking that came in. So Holly is working on that. So she's the go-to. Phil is working with a lot of our community associations, helping me with some of the things on my list. And helping to coordinate with administration to try to get answers and move things forward. And just being that second point of contact for groups and organizations and for people who are needing things done because I feel my box fills up. And then Sonia helps with scheduling, and then Kara's helping with communications. And so it's a full and robust team, but I think it's always just really important to remember. And as I go forward and talk about a couple things today, that I have a team supporting me, and I'm so grateful to that team. So I've just given a shout out to my team who's helping support all the things that are happening across the ward, across the city, and across the province, because we're going to talk about some provincial things today. So one of the big things, though, that I'm working on local in the city is cost of housing. And so cost of housing sorry, I just noticed my ear. I'm going to pull out. Cost of housing can be challenging. So one of the comments I've heard, especially with respect to row housing, is like, that's not affordable. Totally agree. I've been talking a lot with some of the inner city builders. I've been talking a lot with our row house builders about some of the costs that are getting tacked onto row houses that are not getting added to semis and singles that are driving the cost of that housing up. And so working through how to reduce those costs. So one of them is just transformer upgrades with NMAX. So I actually met with NMAX this morning, got a bit more information. Of course, in a regulated environment, there's a lot of regulations around it. But opportunities to think different, do different. And so how do we bring that forward and start to work on that so that some of those additional costs can be reduced? Things like sidewalk repairs. There's a whole set of costs that are being attached to row houses that are not being attached to singles and semis, and that's a challenge. And so we need to talk about that. One of the other things, we know there's more row houses getting appealed. And so the appeal process is taking a little bit longer. And not to say not offering a judgment on the appeal process at all. In terms of it should be there. I totally believe in that. I would like to see more things being resolved before it go to appeal, because a lot of them are just like issues that should be able to be solved with the file managers. But because there have been more appeals because of the row house process, the appeal process is taking longer. So it's taking 7 to 8 weeks to get a hearing. That's carrying costs. That's 2 months of carrying costs instead of 2 months of construction costs. Or in 2 months of like a site is sitting without construction. So those are concerns. So I'm looking at, as our subdivision appeal board, do they have enough resources so that they can move hearings through faster? And that helps for everyone. That helps for the person who is appealing it. That helps for the applicant. It helps them to just move things through. Where possible, I'm trying to get solutions when I'm having residents messaging me about units. I'm trying to be like, let's get all of these things worked out before the development permit is released. So again, doing a little bit of work there too. And it sort of just depends on when those comments come in and when we can do things. So there's a bit of that. So that's a little bit of work. I'll post some of the other work. It's things like helping with Safety City, what's happening with them. Lakeview has approached me to work on some projects on 66th. I'm trying to think without referring to the list. Oh, working with Dragon Boat Society to work on a few things for their festival this year. What else am I working on? West Elbow local area plan is coming, so I've been emailing about that. And then, so let's talk about provincial, because that's what I really want to dig into. Is the province introducing 3 new bills. So Bill 50, Bill 51, and then recently on Tuesday, Bill 54. And it's a lot. And I'll tell you why some of it falls on me specifically. So through my appointment to Alberta municipalities, I sit on the governance committee. And so the governance committee is specifically tasked with looking at provincial legislation that affects municipalities. So 50, 51, and 54, the bills introduced. So there's changes to the Municipal Government Act. There are changes to the Local Authorities Election Act. There are hinted at changes to some bylaws that we may not even be able to have around temporary signage. And so there's a lot going on that is sort of like additional on me to review. So I wanted to, and so that's just like one like additional piece of work that like one, no elected officials asked for. There's a few pieces, and I will say every bill has pros and cons. Every bill has pros and cons, goods and bad. There's always a good in every single bill that the province, I will say there's always a good in the bill. It has often, though, been outweighed by a lot of bad that nobody has asked for. So we're like, oh, hey, this is a change we need. They do it, and then they do a whole bunch of other things that nobody asked for and really make things really more challenging. So I want to talk about them specifically. So first I want to talk about Bill 51. So Bill 51 actually specifically dealt more with school sites. So more with public, so there are rules around code of conduct for trustees. The real that's getting me with Bill 51, I don't know how else to put it because it just makes my face squirrely, is the provisions for the province to essentially take land that we would designate special purpose recreation, which is land we would set aside to go to schools, public schools, that they're saying if they wanted, they could take that land to give it to private schools. That is a big issue for me. That municipal reserve or municipal special purpose land could be given to private schools, private institutions instead of public institutions. So we are doing some work and looking at that through our joint use coordinating committee. I'm sure our school boards are looking at that. But what that could do is eventually limit the ability for our public school boards to expand. And we know that the capital dollars for those schools need to come from the province. So if the province says, we don't have the capital money for you, we need a school. Oh, here's a piece of land that's been set aside. Oh, here's this private school that has capital to build. And we're going to give them some capital because we don't need to give them as much because they're private. Then they get to build. And then we get no more public schools built. It's a problem. So please, 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 if you are an advocate for public school education, look at Bill 51, look at the implications of that, look what that means for future school growth. If you think we have overcrowding issues in our public schools right now, this has the potential to make it worse. And so we need to work to try to safeguard that land specifically for public schools, but I don't know if the province will let us. Problematic. Let's talk about Bill 54. Bill 54 came out on Tuesday. So the good in it, we'll take the good. The good in it is that campaign disclosures for municipal elections, anything, they need to be disclosed by September 30th. My question is, what happens to those donations between October 1st and October 21st or 20th, the date of the election? Do they need to be disclosed? When do they need to be disclosed? So those are some considerations too. So again, intent good. Total holistic approach, presupposing all the questions that will come from it and having the answers to that, totally missing. So that is often what has happened. So they've released all of these changes and they don't have answers to things. So the big one so that's Bill 54. Now, the second part of Bill 54 is this provision that they will not allow municipalities to regulate election signs. So in 2021, yes, we simultaneously were having a federal election and a municipal election. There were lawn signs everywhere. We have a temporary sign bylaw that says where you can put signs. We had candidates putting signs in illegal places. So think about when you're driving down the street and there's like the triangle, they're called a pork chop. I don't think technically, but they're called a pork chop right before you turn the slip lane onto a road. So we had candidates placing lawns or signs, big signs, 4x8 signs, big, on those pork chops. That is a safety hazard for visibility. You're not allowed to do that. So people could report them in. If the province gets rid of our temporary sign bylaw, free for all, big signs anywhere you want. Don't have to worry about all of the roads that you're not allowed signs on. So you're not allowed. So in Ward 11, you're not allowed signs on Elbow Drive. You're not allowed signs on Southland Drive. You're not allowed signs on McLeod Trail. I think you're not allowed signs on Blackfoot. There's a whole bunch of roads because they're either high speed, lots of intersections. For safety reasons, we've said these are no-go places. You cannot have signs here. The province is like, you can have signs. We're probably just going to get rid of it so you can have signs wherever you want. After 2021, because of the number of sign complaints that were going up, and not just election signs, but just general temporary signage everywhere, we worked really hard. So I brought forward a notice of motion to change the rules around temporary signs and how we deal with temporary signs. And we created these great parameters. So the rules around where they could get placed were not, didn't change, but how we manage them were better. So now in an election, though, it basically throws that all out the door. So be prepared for a very hideous September and October, where there are signs everywhere and big signs everywhere if the province brings us forward. And road sign complaints are some of the number one thing. Anyways, not awesome. That is like just and not allowing a municipality to manage something within their municipality for safety reasons. Like the reason we have rules around temporary signs is for safety, for sightline safety, for pedestrians, for cars, for bikes, for anyone, like anyone. It is for safety. And for them to just tell us that we can't do that, it seems super counterintuitive. But hey, I don't know. I guess like if they really want to run a city, they should just come run the city. I don't know. It's becoming increasingly frustrating. The number of, and it's like small things, but they add up to big things. Yeah. So that's the big one. Now, the one that is the most concerning to me is Bill 50. So Bill 50 removes code of conduct. I've been talking on the media about this. But it removes the ability for municipalities to have code of conduct. The reasoning that the minister said was that the code of conducts were being weaponized between councillors. And I'm not going to disagree with that statement. I think that there are probably cases. The thing is, code of conduct isn't just between elected officials. The code of conduct is also how elected officials are responsible to the public and how we can treat the public. And also like how the public can treat us. So without a code of conduct, we are just relying on people to be on their best behavior with no parameters. Now, they will say things like, oh, there's like the Human Rights Commission and all these other workplace policies. Nuh-uh. Human Rights Commission, maybe yes. But like OH&S, we're not bound by OH&S. We're actually not, because we're contractors. We're not employees of the city. We're contracted essentially. So like a lot of the other like policy and legal frameworks that would apply to a lot of other workers don't apply to counselors. And so that is like the intent of a code of conduct. Of course, the irony is that then, the speaker of the ledge was like, oh, we should have a code of conduct for MLAs. But in the meantime, on the other side of the room, McIver was like taking over a code of conduct for municipal elected officials. So anyways, let's get past the behavior side. Our code of conduct also talks about reporting and disclosure. So how we spend our ward budgets, how we disclose that. It talks about like we have to note any gifts or benefits that we receive so that you can see, if someone's taking us to dinner, or if someone's if we're offered tickets to an event and we take advantage of free tickets, if we're offered memberships anywhere, if we receive any honorariums for any other work we do. So I sit on Alberta municipalities, I receive an honorarium, I report that honorarium because of the code of conduct. And so I have to report all of that. Without a code of conduct, who can report on that? Where do we have to report on that? Who can hold us accountable? Who we take meetings with? We have to report on who we take meetings with. If we have any discussions about work, we have to report on meetings. So I met with John Yee from the Center for Newcomers today. We went for coffee. I would report on that. I met with I was talking earlier, I met with individuals from NMAX. I report on that so you know who I'm taking meetings with, right? It got brought up. So my disclosure list got reported on. Or not reported, it was mentioned. So when we were going through the Glenmore Landing redevelopment, someone said, oh, you met with the developer 15 times. Yes, I did. I reported on that. You know how many times I'm meeting with a developer about an application. There's a lot of reasons for meeting with the developer on that application 15 times. We're going to leave it in the past, didn't go through. But without that reporting and disclosure, you would not know that. You would not know that. So now a developer, in theory, without a code of conduct, could take me for dinner, spend however much they want on me. I don't have to disclose that I've had a meeting with them. I don't have to disclose where we went. Totally secretive. So this is how bribery of elected officials happens when there's no reporting. Do you want that? I don't. So anyways, I'm working on bringing something so that while we can have the behavior component of it, the reporting and disclosure parts, we will still have checks and balances for that. I would also say without this, we have no safety for our staff. So our staff is not covered. Our staff are contractors to us via this, they're contractors to us. The city essentially provides the service of managing the pay for them and their benefits on our behalf. But they are not covered under any other administrative policies because they're not technically administration. They are contractors to us. So they have no bound. So if someone is awful to them, nothing. But flip side is they are also not bound by any policy to make sure that they are conducting themselves respectfully towards the public. These are big misses without a code of conduct. And again, code of conduct, there's no way for the public to report on how councillors are adhering to policies and bylaws, because technically all policies and bylaws of the city would apply to me as well. So for example, what are the off-leash rules for dogs? Sorry, Instagram just paused there. Anyways, Bill 50 is an issue. There are other things in Bill 50 that are problematic too. Again, working with Alberta municipalities to try to bring forward some of those changes. And just the timing of it right before an election is super problematic. We also have provisions in our code of conduct for use of assets of the city, especially during an election period and then election activities. So without it, it is all gone. It is all gone. So I'm trying to retain parts of our code of conduct. It's possible I may be in a very public disagreement and argument with the minister. I'm happy to have it. I will note that the minister is a Ward 11 constituent, and if he wants the ability for people to pay my way through an election, cool. Then that is what he's getting. So I will just say there are so many unanswered questions to these bills, and that is the issue. The issue is they also have groups like Alberta municipalities, like the RMA, the Rural Municipalities of Alberta, who can be sounding boards for these pieces of legislation. I understand why some things need to change or why they might want to change them. But without being asked, hey, these are the changes we're thinking of making, what are we missing? We can't even ask questions. Even if we could have asked questions, they might have had answers and helped fill in the gaps of the feasibility of it, the technicality of it. So because now we don't really know, can we create a policy about disclosure? So it's a risk, it's a gamble that I'm bringing this, but it's what I'm willing to take because I think it's one that is really important that the public has that disclosure of what we're doing as their elected officials. That is, when we talk about transparency in government, this is it. And I will continue to advocate for it. So that is Friday. I realize there is a lot coming. I realize, even with Bill 54, the ability to have a conversation around referendum for splitting. There was a great article in CBC about it today and just about the costs and the feasibility of it and the economic repercussions. I highly recommend that you read it. I am sure if CBC is not your thing, I'm sure there are other outlets who are talking about it too. But I think it is, you know what, it maybe is a worthwhile exercise to talk about who we are. And then the irony of it all is many of the people who want to separate from Canada, I'm always like, oh, maybe we should run the Calgary Separatist Party, because let's face it, Calgary actually subsidizes a good chunk of the population in Alberta and a good chunk of our other municipalities through the revenue generation that we drive to the province. So maybe Calgary should then just separate and become our own province. I don't know, and I'm being glib, but it kind of goes to show you how not well intentioned, thought through, and perfectly honest, how shallow it is. And I will also just say I'm not the biggest sports fan, but are we going to get then our own team at the Olympics? Can we afford that? I don't know. What national hockey team would I cheer for? What is the name of our country going to be if we bring in BC and Saskatchewan? So many unanswered questions, friends. So many unanswered questions. It is lovely out. Went for a walk last night. I'm well past my 15 minutes, so thank you if you've stuck around. Went for a walk last night. Lots of people out walking their dogs, getting ice cream, hanging out by the river. And I just love to see it. Honestly, we are so spoiled in this city with amazing spaces, and I hope you take advantage of them and get out to them this weekend and enjoy, and just take note of all of the other people who are sharing in that joy with you. Who knows what their political affiliation is? Who knows how they feel about anything? But you're sharing that common moment with them right now in the really cool space, taking advantage of the weather. And again, we are more alike than we are dissimilar. And to me, that is the power of who we are. So happy Friday, everybody. Happy May. And I wish you all a best sunny weekend. And if you're like me, you'll probably be digging in the garden a bit too. Talk to you later.